Greetings, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As President of the UN Movie Society, I am honored to host this special conversation in observance of the month of the International Day of Sport for Peace and Development. Today, we welcome director Giulio Bertelli from Italy to discuss his film AGON, a profound exploration of the agōn, or Greek for struggle, through the lens of three female athletes. By examining the intersection of human endurance and modern technology, the film challenges us to reflect on how sport is not merely a test of physical skill, but serves as a vital driver for social progress, gender equality, and the promotion of peace. Please join me in warmly welcoming Giulio Bertelli. Giulio, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you so much for creating this inspirational film. Tell us what inspired you to create this?
I think originally it was the film I wrote it originally for an animation. It was not supposed to be a live action film. And the very early idea of it was to try to imagine what and who could be a Joan of Arc in the context of the world of contemporary sport, and really imagining what if Joan of Arc would be a modern fencer who goes to the Olympics and by accident kills someone, and then a whole sort of political and to some extent geopolitical thriller starts at the Olympics, and while she goes on trial.
Your film, AGON, features women competing in 3 different Olympic sports in rifle, shooting, fencing, and judo. So these are all disciplines that began as training for war originally, and now it's seen as a global sport and entertainment. How, in your view, do you feel that sport is helpful in diplomacy?
I think that, I don't know whether it's helpful or not, but I truly believe that sports competition, the very big ones, and particularly the Olympics, are a geopolitical platform where nations and states, in a way, they are either doing diplomacy or fighting using athletes as proxy. So they're really, it's a platform where they are showcasing their soft power, and therefore the value of each of these nations really, it becomes a tool in the hands of the athletes.
Indeed, and what I really appreciated was the name of the games. You picked the word Ludoj, which is an Esperanto word.
Yes.
Tell us, how did you pick this language, Esperanto, and how does it symbolize your philosophy behind this film?
So there was a moment where there was a long period where we worked on the branding what was our sort of version of the Olympic Games. And among the many things, we had to also pick a name. And I wanted to find a word that would remind the idea of games, of course, the Olympic Games, which is Ludoj and Ludoj, and which is in Esperanto, and I also thought it sounded like a not well-defined city, and I liked the idea of placing this sport event in a kind of unknown space.
And the film really shows the challenges of navigating through different bureaucracies with governments, with corporations. Is this what you were trying to also focus on in the film?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's this very big apparatus that is the world of sport, and a lot of it is down to technical regulation. Then each state has its own internal regulation on the federation, sports event, the branding rule, sponsorship rule, the economics behind sports event. So I think it's something that I wanted to deal with, but I wanted always to serve the story. So for me, it was always about, I knew that there was something important there to talk about, but it needed always, my decision was always, is this useful to build on the storyline, on the character, in trying to move the story ahead. So I think the challenge, in a way, that I faced, or I wanted to face, was how to have three storylines, fictional storyline, navigate this ecosystem of modern sports, and having therefore the theoretical part of the film, and at the same time the very adventurous, fictional part of following the journey of three young athletes.
You balanced it very beautifully.
Thank you.
And the film is about three women.
Yeah.
And you decided to focus on three women who would be competing in three different, usually male-dominated sports.
Yes.
What inspired you to focus on featuring women and drawing upon historical examples such as Joan of Arc and Cleopatra?
Yes. I think there's two parts to this answer. One is exactly as you mentioned, the reference to when I started to imagine about the film, it really started from the figure of Joan of Arc. So after that, all of the research I did was finding similar historical figures that were always women. And it was, for me, impossible to imagine in my head the film not looked through the eyes of femininity. And I think the reason why I was really drawn to that was the fact that because our warfare, like sports, particularly, now fortunately things are changing, is a war-dominated environment. I thought that to improve on the ability to convey this contrast between the relationship between violence, war, and sport, going through the story from the body of women instead of men would help to convey this contrast. And therefore all of the stigma and the prejudice would help to enhance, in a way, my argument.
And in your film, you actually casted a real Olympic athlete.
Yes.
Tell us about this decision to cast a real Olympic athlete. And
I knew that I wanted the film to be very credible on a sports side. I wanted to be very accurate. And I knew I could cast the fencer and the rifle shooter with actresses, because I knew that with the fencing I could use the fencing mask as a stunt double, and in rifle shooting it was really a sport about being still. So I knew from the beginning that a actress that ultimately ended up being Sofia Zobina could play the part. But I knew that I needed to find a professional judoka. I wanted that real body, that real ability to move into space, the understanding of how to train. And the reality kind of surpassed my expectation, because I met Alice. I immediately knew that she was the right person for the film. She was doing her Olympic campaign preparation, and that kind of made it very complicated because we needed to rush into production and find and work around her schedule. But at the same time, while I was editing the film 6 months after, and she won a gold medal in Paris, it was, of course, a beautiful moment, first of all for her, but it was also a beautiful moment for me as well, because making my first film, having her as one of the protagonists, and seeing that after a few months she would shooting the film, which was a challenge for all of us, and she would go and win a gold medal. It was incredible.
congratulations.
Yeah, I was very happy for her, to be honest.
To both of you. Yeah. I was so moved by the mental toll
Yeah.
women have as athletes. This film was so powerful in depicting that, and I really appreciate that.
I think there's also positives, of course, otherwise, you know, and my film is really not a critique about, I've been an athlete myself, and it's not a critique of that system, but I think there was a moment where I felt the need for the movie to go into much darker territories and also showcase that sense of displacement, loneliness, isolation, and waiting. You know, there's a lot of waiting as an athlete. You know, you do your work, you come prepared, but then there's a whole schedule that is not in your control, and the waiting, both in the sense of scale, of like waiting for 4 years. You know, you fail an Olympic campaign, and then you need to wait for another 4 years to get to another Olympic campaign, and also just waiting during, you know, your sort of daily life. You're kind of a machine or a piece of a machine that kind of works for you, around you, and you kind of serve it as well. So it is a very strange relationship.
And it's a sacrifice.
And it's a lot of sacrifices, yes.
There's lots of moments of isolation throughout the whole film.
Yes.
And what's interesting is there are no crowds. You don't see, usually in the Olympics, you have crowds cheering. In your version of the Olympics, there are so many moments of isolation, quietness. Were you trying to depict that the future Olympics could be portrayed this way or symbolized this way?
Yeah, no, I definitely wanted to give my own speculation in what certain event, sports event, or the Olympics could aim for in the future. It came out of a necessity at the beginning, because when the film moved from being an animation to a live action film, I really needed to find a solution on how to make it happen, because I was making my first small independent Italian film, and to take such a huge task of depicting the Olympics, which is one of the biggest events in the world, would have been impossible.
You would need extras.
Exactly.
You would need to cast them,
and so that led me to like a 2 years, 1 year and a half project in itself of really thinking about, okay, what is really the sport? What is really the Olympics? What is important in this event? And that led me to think about that most of these sport at the Olympics, they only exist for their video content. And recording sport and history of cinema, they kind of share a path in the last 150 years. And I started to think, what if in the near future we don't bring the technology to the sports arena, but instead we bring the sports into the facility that is traditionally most suited to record video, which is a sound stage. So in imagining what if in LA, Los Angeles 28 Olympics, instead of shooting the judo event in a sports arena, what if they bring it into one of the Universal studios? And by doing so, you do something that I think is very important, that you introduce a new layer of information, which is sound. You can hear the sports so well, you know. You can hear all of the texture of their bodies and their garments, and that is something I was very interested in.
And how does your film explore the balance between human fragility and technology? I've
always been interested in the writing I've done for this film and other projects that I hope to do in the future about this intersection between organic matter and technology, but not too much as a metaphor, but really looking at the graphic, real juxtaposition of these two elements. And I think one way to describe it very easily in my film is the surgery, the scene of the surgery, which is a very crude scene, but it's the idea that you actually have a piece of technology that is built by humans, like a robotic component for surgery that actually goes through the body, through blood, through flesh. And I think this it's a place looking at these intersections that I'm very curious about.
Yeah, like where do you draw the line between balancing between natural human performance and technology?
Absolutely. There's another argument about what is called ergogenic aids, so basically doping, of where do you decide doping starts and stops, which type of medical treatment are allowed, which type of chemical elements are allowed and which are not. So I think different people would have a different understanding or argument or opinion on what is doping, what is... I mean, there is, of course, a federation that decides what is doping and what is not, but if we take out the bureaucracy that we were speaking about before, there's an argument to be made about, okay, what if you change those parameters? Maybe it should be more restricted, less restricted, and I think, you know, in the future this will become more and more a topic in the world of sports and in the world of general medicine, because you have genetic kind of work that is done in the world of medicine that can help with a lot of diseases, but technically that's also something that can help to improve sports performance. So is that doping, is that doping? So there's a big question about this.
Your film does a great job in exploring all these questions. So
put them out there at least.
Exactly, to get people to think.
Yeah.
And your background, you shared that you are an athlete. I know that you are a professional sailor.
Yes.
And also you are an architect. You studied architectural design.
Yes.
And it's a very beautiful balance. So how did this background inform the way you directed?
So
or help you?
No, absolutely.
I will
tell. I, in a way, it's a very unconscious process. So I can only say some. You know, I think I didn't become an architect, but I did study architecture. I left before completing my university degree, and I had a long professional career in the sport of sailing, in offshore sailing particularly, and clearly gave me a profound understanding of some of this loneliness that we were talking about.
You see it.
And in a way, I think if my previous career as an athlete has informed the very visceral, character-driven part of the film, maybe the architectural academic studies I've had has instead informed how the machine of the Olympics or modern sports could change. So it's maybe both have informed something of the story of the film.
In your opinion, what does the film tell the audience about ambition and delusion? Like for athletes are so obsessed about winning.
Yes.
But that's not the most important thing, winning. Is it more of the art of the sport?
It's a very difficult question because sport by definition is to try to win by respecting the rules. And I think you cannot be an elite level athlete if you don't believe that you are there to try to just win. But at the same time, we first need to remember that 99.9% of the professional athletes, they don't win, they just participate. So it's kind of a very difficult, I will try to put it differently. I think as the media and the general audience and the public, on one end tends to, let's say, teach or push a narrative about that the important thing is only to participate and the practice and the process, but at the same time there is a narrative that is constantly enforced that is about the Michael Jordan or the Cristiano Ronaldo, so this type of figures that would do anything to win. And their only objective in life has been or continues to be to just try to win, and nothing else matters. So, and we praise and celebrate that level of dedication. And therefore it's a very, very, in a way, my film really at a certain point wanted to revolve on this. What is the right answer to this question?
Exactly.
It's very difficult.
Exactly.
And it changes from person to person, and it changes also. Me as a friend, I may empathize to you as an athlete that you decide to pull out because of a competition, because you maybe have some troubles at home. Yeah. But at the same time, I think the difference maybe between a Michael Jordan and an athlete who will not win the competition is the ability to perform under pressure, the ability to surpass all of the problems and cut out the noise and really focus on the sports performance. Mm-hmm. So it's in a way both are true, and
you understand both.
Yes, in a way, yes.
Sides.
Correct.
So tell us, what do you hope the audience, the global international audience, will take away and learn from this film?
First of all, I think we said it before, to pose questions.
Yes.
To question themselves. I think to try to take some of the questions that are in the film and bring them in their own life and conversation with partners, friends, family. The idea of looking at sport and the world of the Olympics with a different set of eyes. And start to think about what is that we are really doing when we, as spectators, watch sport as a form of entertainment, but also when we, as young adult, we practice sport and we compete. So this idea of competition is something I'm very interested about.
Giulio, thank you so much for creating this incredible, fascinating film. It teaches us that sports is not just about winning only.
No.
And it also symbolizes many UN values such as social issues, gender equality, and peace. And these are all universal values of the United Nations that we embrace. And to our global audience who are very interested in watching this film, the film is being released on Mubi, and we are so happy to learn about your work. And on behalf of the UN Movie Society, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the interview.